made a brand new Create Addon storage mod called the Create Storage mod. It's taken over 300 hours over the course of the last month, learning as I go because I've never made a mod before. Unless you count this one, which literally just has a bunch of very basic blocks that don't do anything. Anything at all, actually, other than just exist. So really not what you might consider a mod. I had huge plans for what I wanted to achieve, but will I achieve all of those plans? Let's get into it. I recently finished 5,000 days in a Create focused modded Let's Play using a Forge-based mod pack that I put together called FXNT Create, combining a whole ton of my favourite mods, like this, and this, and this. And as I'm about to start a brand new series, still Create focused of course, I decided to move to a Fabric mod pack, so I can do this, and this, and this. Wow, right? But sadly, Fabric doesn't quite have the same support as Forge for the number of mods available, so as much as most of the mods I enjoy are in my new mod pack, it's still missing some key features I just can't live without. Like this, and this, and this. Now there are some storage systems and backpacks for Fabric, but storage drawers is just such a must-have mod for Create that I need something similar. Likewise, there are a ton of backpack mods for Fabric, but they're all just so basic, either lacking features or storage space or just not even being able to wear them. And as for framed blocks, how can I make roofs without my slopes? So I set myself a task to make a Create Addon mod using Fabric that will bring all of these things to my new Let's Play. I gave myself a week, which turned into a month. And did I achieve all of those things? How hard could it be, right? Very, as it turns out. Modding is super hard, especially when you've never done it before. I spent more time in this last month trying to figure out the simplest issues, like items vanishing as soon as they go into a container, than actually writing any of the code for the mod. But fear not, peeps, I've done it! Sort of, a bit. What I've managed to create are some storage boxes of different varieties and a bunch of backpacks. What about the slopes? Well, I wanted to clone the existing copycat panels and just make new sloped models for them, but it turns out that's not how it works, and after spending a good portion of the first week looking into how Frame Blocks actually does it, I gave up. Creating custom renderers and vertex buffers and post stacks and what? It's just way beyond my capabilities. So no slopes. So what about the storage boxes then? Do they work just like the storage drawers mod where they can be connected together to make a network with controllers and interfaces? No. They look a little bit like storage drawers, and in terms of putting items in and getting them out, they kind of work the same way. But I wanted these to be more create-y, because this is a Create add-on, don't forget. So first of all, I used the Create textures to make them look like they fit in with the Create theme. And then I added this handy little interface to the front that works as a filter to prevent certain items from going in. And it works with the Create filters too, so you can set multiple item types if you want. I also added this handy little indicator light on the front to show you if it's empty or full, and I even figured out how to put text on the front showing how many items are inside and the percentage of space used. And I even made it so you can access the inventory menu and manually put in or take items. You can't do that with storage drawers. They come in 5 varieties from industrial iron through andesite, copper and brass to hardened storage boxes, and each one has a different size inventory. But can I store hundreds of thousands of items inside? No. Sadly, I couldn't figure out how to make each slot hold more than 64 items without totally messing up any sort of interaction with hoppers, chutes and funnels. So you beat me there, storage drawers mod. And you beat me again, because I just didn't have time to figure out turning this into a network, so all of these are completely individual units. They don't even have void upgrades. But now, after all of this time making this mod, I do actually have a good idea of how to make them take much larger amounts and work with upgrades and even void items if needed, so there might be a few changes in the future. And these boxes only took a few days to make, and that's because these backpacks took so much longer. You wouldn't think there'd be too much difference from a storage box to a backpack. The storage boxes hold their inventory when broken, like a shulker box, so I've just got to make it go on my back, right? Wrong! The Fabric mod is a special kind of animal. In Forge, there are events. You want to detect when a player does something? Hook into event. Want to modify what happens when X interacts with Y? Hook into an event. Now, I'm not saying Forge is easy or simple, or that Fabric is the reason why things have been difficult, but when you want to hook into an event on Fabric, there are very few events to hook into. Most of the time, you have to make a mix in. What's a mix-in? A mix-in is basically a way to inject your code into the very fabric of Minecraft code. It's a pun. They're so powerful you can make a mix-in to modify, enhance, remove, or change any vanilla Minecraft feature that you like. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is making the mix-in. First of all, you have to decide which part of the game's code you want to inject your code into, and then you have to look at the actual bytecode of the game and find the correct part of that to address. What the hell is bytecode, and how am I supposed to read that? I'm never going to get this mod done. Unless... yeah. So it turns out ChatGPT is pretty good at making mods and very good at making mix-ins. It's not always right, and its code doesn't always work, but it gets you going in the right direction 99% of the time. So you could say ChatGPT made this mod, but it didn't. It just mostly told me what to do when I was completely stuck. Anyway, backpacks, how hard could it be? Well, I didn't just want any old backpacks. I wanted backpacks with multiple storage sections, upgrades that feed you automatically and have magnets to suck in items. I wanted slots to stack to crazy amounts and to be able to use them with hoppers and funnels and chutes. I wanted the world, and I made it. Almost, just about. These backpacks each have 3 storage compartments, one for the bulk of your items, which will interact with hoppers and chutes and things, one for your tools and your special items, which won't interact with hoppers and chutes and funnels and things, so your items are safe in there, and one for the upgrades, which is just for upgrades. That's right, I made upgrades! Each different variety of backpack will hold a different number of items per slot, from 64 up to 999 in the hardened backpack. Wait, you said you couldn't do larger than 64 stacks on the storage boxes? Yeah, I really wanted them on the backpack, so I had to sacrifice a minor detail in order to achieve that a bit, sort of, kind of. You see, the storage boxes will most likely spend their lives integrated into factories with chutes or funnels moving items in and out of them, whereas the backpack is going to be interacting with hoppers and chutes and funnels a lot less regularly. So it doesn't really matter that when hoppers and chutes and funnels try to put items into the backpack, that they completely ignore the maximum size of each slot and just stack items up to 64 regardless. But that does matter on storage boxes. So why 999 as the slot limit? Well, because if you have more than 999, the numbers go over into the next slot and it becomes unreadable. So just make the font smaller. So just make just make the font smaller. Oh, you guys. Hours I spent trying to figure that out. I even completely ripped off how sophisticated backpacks did it, which meant rewriting the entire graphics GUI class just to change the font size. But it still didn't work. The mouse wasn't where it should be, the numbers were all in the wrong place. It was a nightmare. Even ChatGPT was stumped. So no, the font size will stay the default, thank you, and 999 as the maximum will do, okay? Jeez. So getting back to the other reasons that these backpacks have been a nightmare. Well, it turns out getting them to open their inventory was pretty simple. You just have to figure out how to make a custom keybind, tell that to open the backpack from the item stack instead of the block entity, and hey presto! All of my items have gone missing! And when I put more items in, they go missing. Great. Okay, so it took ChatGPT and I a little while to figure out a system that writes and reads the MBT data inside of the item stack properly, and also a caching system so each time you open the backpack it's the same one and not just effectively a brand new backpack each time. And it took a while, but it worked. It even works when you open the backpack from your hand, which, believe it or not, was an entirely different challenge in itself, but we won't get into that. So we got wearable backpacks with multiple storage compartments with large stack sizes. What more could I want? Upgrades, of course. I wanted a range of upgrades just like I had with sophisticated backpacks, so I started on a journey that took over 75% of the time I spent creating this mod, starting with the magnet upgrade, an upgrade that sucks items into the backpack from a range around the backpack. It works when the backpack is on your back or placed on the floor, and I bet you're thinking that must have been really hard to make that work.
Actually, it's going to be super easy, barely an inconvenience. Oh, really?
ChatGPT just had to make one of those fancy mix-ins for me, and hey presto, when you throw an item down in the vicinity of the backpack, it goes in. It actually goes in. Oh man, I can't believe it goes in now. For over a week solid, I pored over the code trying to figure out why when the magnet activated while on your back, the items around you would vanish, but not appear in the backpack. And that's when I learned a lesson about client-side and server-side thingies. You see, Minecraft, even when you're just playing alone, not on a server, just in your single-player world, runs as both a client and a server. The client part is the bit you see connected to your screen, your keyboard and mouse, and the bit that controls the visuals. Anything you do as the player gets processed by the client and sent to the server. The server is the part that does all of the work, or at least most of it. You won't have any direct interaction with the server as a player, but the server is in charge. If you're looking into your backpack and making changes, it's the server that decides if those items you just put in there are allowed to be in there.
Not you insignificant mortal. How dare you challenge the server?
So what happened was, all of this coding I was doing, it turned out was client side. So when the magnet sucked items into the backpack, the client was like, "Hey server, I got some items, mate." And the server was like, "No, you don't put items into the backpack, that's my job." And then promptly deleted all of those diamonds I just put in. So a quick rewrite here and a long lesson in sending packets to the server from the client so that the server thinks it thought of it all on its own. Eventually it worked. As well as the magnet, I made an item pickup upgrade which does the same thing except without a range. Basically, it just puts the items the player would normally pick up into the backpack instead of the player inventory. I made a refill upgrade to refill the item in your main hand and offhand with any available matching items from your backpack, and I even made a feeding upgrade that detects when you're hungry and shoves some golden carrots down your throat directly from the backpack, even if you don't like carrots. I added in a pick block upgrade so you can pick block a block and a matching block from your backpack will go into your hand, and then came the tool swapper upgrade challenge. Now personally, I never used the sophisticated backpack's tool swapper upgrade. After all of these years of playing Minecraft, I've gotten used to my hotbar layout with my favourite tools and enchantments in all of the right slots, and I've even got pretty good at throwing my sword on the floor in front of a creeper when I quickly try and switch to my sword slot when taken by surprise. So why did it make a tool swap upgrade if I don't use them? Well, I thought I could do it better. You see, the sophisticated backpacks upgrade... Wait, what's a tool swapper upgrade? Well, okay. Basically, if you've got a tool in your main hand and you try and use it on a block or entity, the backpack will switch it out for the most appropriate tool or weapon for the job. So effectively, you only need one tool slot on your hotbar and it will change automatically based on what you're doing. Well, at least that's how it should work. But as usual, there are some issues. The sophisticated backpack's tool swapper is pretty basic. It looks for the best tool for the job based on the maximum speed you can mine the block or the maximum damage the weapon will do to an entity. But it doesn't take into account things like Silk Touch or Sharpness or Smite or other enchantments that might improve the actual damage you might do to an enemy. It also doesn't offer any weapons other than a sword. So if you've got a netherite axe with Sharpness, for example, and a wooden unenchanted sword and you go up against a creeper, it'll swap out your very strong and useful axe for that flimsy cardboard sword that you forgot that you left in your backpack. Not exactly ideal. So my tool swapper does a couple of things differently. In terms of blocks, if a block would benefit from Silk Touch and you have it available, it will prioritise Silk Touch over mining speed. It won't work with blocks like glass that don't have a predetermined tool, but for things like ores or grass or even ice, these backpacks will choose a Silk Touch tool if you've got it. In terms of entities or mob, it actually considers which enchantments your tools and weapons have and if they're effective for the mob type that you're attacking, which means if your axe is stronger than your sword for a particular entity, it'll give you that. And it turns out that axes are way stronger than swords. So most of the time it gives you an axe, which is how I generally play Minecraft anyway, so that suits me. And believe it or not, that complicated system of determining tools and enchantments to swap them out of the player's hand after the player has already started swinging was one of the simplest things I've added to this mod. But what was more challenging, but a whole bunch more satisfying, was making my favourite upgrade. Each of these backpacks can be turned into a jetpack just by adding an upgrade. They use air from Create back tanks, and while activated you can fly up to 32 blocks above the ground, hover by pressing a custom keybind or by pressing jump and crouch together, and it's wonderful. It has a completely custom gravity and movement system, thank you very much ChatGPT, so you can fly around quickly or maintain a more precise hovering state by activating the hover ability. And you don't have to hold crouch to hopper, which means that you can crouch click blocks like chests while hovering without falling out of the sky. Not like that pesky jetpack from the Create Stuff and Additions, which isn't actually available for Fabric. But there is a Create Jetpack mod for Fabric called the Create Jetpack mod, and it works in a similar way to what I've done with a couple of fundamental differences. First of all, the Create Jetpack mod adds visuals to your GUI showing things like your fuel level, which some of you might find handy. I, however, find them distracting and unnecessary, particularly as a content creator that wants a nice clean GUI for my videos. Also, the Create Jetpack mod makes you sync while hovering, which isn't ideal for building at height, although that can be changed in the settings. And thirdly, it makes a horrible, annoying sound the entire time that you're flying. Which again isn't great for content creation purposes. And the other thing it does is kill you when you drop out of the sky from too high up. Which my jetpack does too! Which is why the final upgrade I made was a fall damage upgrade, which means you'll never take fall damage while wearing a backpack with that upgrade activated. But what if I want to live on the edge and deactivate it without taking it out of my backpack? Well, similarly to sophisticated backpacks that have a fancy little toggle on the side of the upgrade, all of the upgrades in my mod are toggleable by holding the control key and clicking them. So what about crafting upgrades? Look, there's still loads I want to do, but I've run out of time. I need to get this next series started and start producing content again, so this will have to do for now. Hopefully I'll continue to tweak and add to it when I have the time, but for now, that's it. Is it what I set out to make? No, nowhere near, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Is it available for download? No. It will be, but I've not quite finished yet. I mean, I haven't even added any recipes for the blocks and backpacks, so if you've got ideas for what the recipes should be, then let me know in the comments. Is that the end of the video? Yeah.